There's one behind it.
I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:30. If you would all rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow. Roll call.
George Cullis.
Here.
Karen Winchester. Here. Mark Freeman.
Here.
Pat Feeney.
Here.
Steve Ruth.
Here. Consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve consent agenda.
We need to add something to number 3, a Shannon request for water and sewer.
Okay, number 3 of
To add, to put it as number 3.
under new business.
Under new business.
Moving the other 2 items to 4 and 5.
Yes. And then under consider closed session to discuss attorney-client privilege communication, that should say and real estate.
Okay.
And then we should move public comment up to before consider closed session.
That would be number 4 then?
Yeah.
Public comment.
Okay. Any other additions? None appearing, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Support. So it's moved by Clerk Winchester, support by Treasurer Freeman. Roll call, please.
Steve Ruth.
Yes.
Pat Feeney.
Yes.
Mark Freeman.
Yes.
Karen Winchester.
Yes.
George Cullis.
Yes. Okay. We don't have a public hearing or a presentation. Are there any empty seats back here at all?
None.
We
None?
have some of these around.
We've got a couple of chairs we can pull out there. How many people we got out there? Just the 3 of you? 5? If we got a couple of chairs, if you need them.
Someone in the front there? Or no?
Yeah. But you could come in and put them here in the front if you'd like. Oh.
You trying to get a hint here or what?
It was backwards. Just so you know, there had been a conversation about whether we should move this to a larger venue. I made the decision not to do that because of the ability to put this on live feed, and for a lot of people that are able to watch this from home or at other times that aren't available to watch it right now, I wanted to stay in here. I said we'll see what happens. We're pretty close, so if need be, I think we've got a couple more chairs we can pull from behind us. But let us go ahead and move on with the meeting. We'll go into reports. The supervisor's report. The farmstead, the barn project is while it doesn't appear to be moving along, it is moving along. We're waiting for the final pieces of information to come from the engineer, HRC, and then we will sit down with the contractor, the architect, and make the final plans for the correction to move forward on that. We've also been taking bids on cleaning up the trees, both on the north end of the farmstead and on the south end. we'll have information for that. We'll have bids as we come forward on that. We are going to be starting a 4-H club for the farmstead through Michigan State University. That will allow us to bring educational programming to the farmstead as we move forward. One of the first things that had to be done was the creation of the 4-H, so we're working with Debbie Morgan from Michigan State University on putting together all of that, and then we'll eventually be able to roll out the kickoff for that. And then we are just waiting for the agreement to come back between the Holly Heritage Farmstead and the Township Board. I think I saw Harvey Sorensen back there. Did we have a meeting this week at the farmstead? No. Okay, so that's there. Along with the trees, we've also been getting bids on doing some cleanup work at Oak Hill Cemetery on Grange Hall Road. Those will come to you later when we have it all put together. With SISMA, we're working on bids for the spraying of the Phragmites and mapping out the map using ARC and the GIS through Oakland County. Pat, if I'm not mistaken, the Planning Commission is still working on the invasive species ordinance.
Hasn't come before us yet.
Hasn't come back from the planner? Okay. So I've also had a meeting, just for some of you to know, the Consumers Energy is going to be replacing the Saginaw pipeline. That is the pipeline that goes, it's a 100-mile pipeline from north of Saginaw all the way down to 696. It comes through the western part of Holly Township. It is currently a 12 to 16-inch pipe, and they're going to be replacing it with a 24-inch. When that project comes to us, right now they're in the stages of engineering and soil borrowing and getting their permits and so forth. When that project actually gets to us in the next 2 years, they're going to bring between 300 and 600 people to town for that construction process as they go through the township. So you'll be hearing more about that as we go forward. We've also had meetings with Consumers Energy at working on the possibility of bringing natural gas to Holly Township through the North Holly Road corridor over on Fish Lake and some of the areas that don't have gas but people have requested gas. We're looking at that. The main thrust is to get the gas line in on North Holly Road before they go to the trouble of rebuilding that road. We'd hate to get the road rebuilt and then have them busted up to put a gas line in. So we're working on that as well. The Heritage Corridor welcome packet, for those of you that don't know, the Heritage Corridor is Dixie Highway with the ORV park coming out there. We're working on a joint project with Groveland Township and Springfield Project to get ordinances in place that will protect that corridor to keep the natural beauty there, as well as have uniformity in the building codes and expectations for that corridor, along with welcome packets to from an economic development standpoint and from a recreational standpoint. So we're working on those. Code enforcement is going to be working on the Grange Hall Fish Lake Road overlay. So we'll be moving forward on some of that stuff. And that pretty much wraps up my report. So we will move to the treasurer.
The last day to pay property taxes, summer taxes, is September 14th. September 14th is a Friday. As many of you know, Holly Township is on a 4-day week beginning a year ago, so we would normally be closed on Friday. We will be open on Friday, September 14th, to collect taxes.
The hours?
8:30 to 4:30.
Okay. Anything else? That's it. Clerk,
No report?
do you want to report on the election? So for people that are not sure, we're waiting. You want me to do it for you?
Like you.
We're waiting for
What do you wanna
certification
know?
on the write-in candidates.
Yes, okay.
Explain that part of it. A lot of questions are out there.
Well, this is the first time that the county is certifying the write-in candidates for the election, so Holly Township is not doing that, so we're waiting for the county to give the results to not only us, but to the candidates.
Okay. Trustees, I think last time I started with Pat, this time I'll go to Steve.
Nothing for me.
And now I'll go back to Pat.
All right. Planning Commission. Obviously, we dealt with the Holly Hills information that what happened was basically we postponed any decisions because the fire authority and the township engineer needed more information. And I want to correct one erroneous report in the newspaper that is the reason why it was postponed, and not because of giving people who are opposed to the trailer park expansion more time. That is not a legal reason that the Planning Commission could use. So the reason was, which is very typical in projects where developer doesn't give all the information, and the Planning Commission can either go forward and say you can provide it later, or they can say we'll postpone it until you come up with all the information. Nothing really unusual about that. Fire authority, we felt was very important that we get that correct and they get all their questions answered and be able to make their recommendations. We also set a date, and I'm sorry if it slips my mind exactly, for the public hearing on the sign ordinance.
September 4th.
September 4th. So, and that's about it on the Planning Commission then.
Okay, thank you. Public comment on agenda items only. Members of the public can address the board on agenda items only. Once recognized by the supervisor, comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may extend this time by a majority vote. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. A second public comment is available after new business before we go into closed session tonight for all other comments. Thank you for your cooperation. Is there anyone for public comment? Nobody?
George, is the fact that the Parks Board is on the agenda, means that discussion of the Parks Board can happen now, or should that wait? Would you rather have that?
If you have comments on the park board, now's the time to make them. We're not going to have public comment during. It's comments regarding the park commissioner appointment. Tony?
Tony Engelberg, 115 Coggeshall, on the narrow scope, because I do have some other things to say later, but on the narrow scope of the appointment, the resignation letter for that appointment was submitted in May, and for whatever reason, we can make assumptions, but for whatever reason was not accepted or not acknowledged until July. Haven't been able to find out if the Parks Board had a meeting in June or not. Whether they did, if they didn't, they should have, because that is a pretty important piece of business. My thoughts on this are, this board has the authority to appoint whoever you choose. The Parks Board can make a recommendation, but ultimately the decision is yours. I believe that based on some other things that will come to light shortly, the best course of action you could make right now would be to reappoint Don Oliver to that spot. Mr. Oliver, and I don't know him, I've heard some decent things about him. A lot of people that I'm friends with say that he's a pretty good guy and has got a pretty good head on his shoulders. He has been the one involved in things up until this point, and again, there's some things that will come to light. I think for several reasons, it is important that the 6 members who are on that board now remain on that board until the election. So that's all I've got to say on that right now. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? None appearing, we will move into new business, which is the park commissioner appointment. If you want to pass this down to Patrick and yourself. Just for clarification, under Michigan compiled law, number 41-426, Township Park Commission petition elections memberships terms increase or decrease in the number of members and the vacancy. There is a vacancy in the Township Park Commission, and it shall be filled by appointment of the Township Board for a period prescribed in sections 370, 370A of the Michigan election law. I supplied this for the board members so that there was clarification on our, both on our responsibility and, you know, what we can do. Also, you will see that you have in your paperwork a letter from Don Oliver, who is willing to resign his seat on the board, a seat that he was appointed to about 8 months ago to fill for Jesse Torres when he left the board. And he is willing to fill the seat of Mike Minnick, which is a 2-year seat, and that would be up for election in 2020. In the meantime, the Township Board's recommendation was to put Joan, is it Varner? Or Warner?
Or the one that the Park Commission
The Park Commission.
recommended.
The Park Commission recommended Joan Warner. It would be my recommendation to this board that we accept the resignation of Don Oliver from Jesse Torres's, move him to the seat that was vacated by Mike Minnick, and then fill the vacated seat of Jesse Torres with Joan Warner, and that would allow the election to play out and replace that person in November.
I would move to accept the resignation of Don Oliver from Jesse Torres's seat and appoint him to Mike Minnick's seat. Should we
Is
should
there-
probably
is
do
there-
the two separate?
Well, yeah. Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, so it is moved by Clerk Winchester, support by Treasurer Freeman, that we accept the resignation of Don Oliver from Jesse Torres' seat and move him to the seat vacated by Mike Minnick, which will then be up for election in 2020. Is there any further discussion?
I was going to say, why did the Park Commission then suggest Joan Warner to replace Minnick?
Well, the Park Commission did make a request. I met with both the Park Commission president this morning and the director on this combination and the switch based on the election. Don Oliver was the unofficial numbers put Steve LaPlante as the Republican nominee for Parks, with Don Oliver as the second highest vote getter, and Joan Warner with the third. So we felt that this was the equitable way to replace the positions, and they agreed, so we brought this forward for you to look at. Any other questions?
Not for me. I'm all set.
Roll call vote?
Karen Winchester,
Yes.
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
Pat Feeney,
Yes.
George Cullis,
Yes.
Steve Ruth.
Yes.
Okay, and Donna Oliver will need to come in and take the
Sworn
oath,
in.
get sworn in once more. Okay, now on the second step of this,
I would move to appoint Joan Warner to Jesse Torres' seat. Well, actually, it's Don Oliver's seat now.
correct, support? Gets a little complicated, hang in there. Do we have support?
Support.
Clerk Winchester with the motion and Trustee Ruth with support. Any discussion on this? None appearing, roll call please.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
George Cullis,
Yes?
Pat Feeney,
Yes.
Karen Winchester,
Yes.
Mark Freeman.
Yes.
Both motions carry. Next on new business is fall cleanup. We had requests from people. Our spring cleanup was huge. We had requests from people for a cleanup in the fall. So we said we would put it back on the agenda, let the board discuss it. Our spring cleanup ended up running us a total of, we had, if I'm not mistaken, we had 4 dump trucks full, or 4 garbage trucks full. We had a 40-yard dumpster for additional trash. We had a 40-yard dumpster for recyclables, and we had a 40-yard dumpster for tires, and all of those were full as well. So when it was all said and done, Holly Township should have been a lot lighter. There were lines out to the street and down the street, and we had one break the entire day that lasted for almost 3 minutes. There were cars lined up all day long. So the good news is people are cleaning things out and people are moving things, and if you ever want to have an entertaining day, come on out during spring cleanup. You can't believe some of the things they bring in their trailers. It is, and some people come in with 4 and 5 loads. One family rented a U-Haul. They tore down, I don't remember how many, a quarter mile, a half mile of privacy fence.
Wow.
And they just went and loaded it, brought it in, went back home, loaded it again, brought it in, went back home, loaded it again. So, but the good news is a lot of things got cleaned up, a lot of tires, thanks to a couple of the fellas from the Moose, Kurt Smith, and I got one more name out there for the tires they went around and picked up just off the side of the street. Anyway, for those citizens that helped and pitched in to pick that stuff up, that whole day, was the bill around $9,000?
No, 6,000.
Or around 6? Okay, so it was around $6,000 for that. Biggest part of that expense was getting rid of the tires. And we charged for the tires $3 and $5. You know, we may want to look at that, open it up for debate. You run into the problem if you start charging more, people
They're not
won't
gonna
bring them.
in.
It's better to get them cleaned up than finding them on the side of the road, which we do quite often. But that's kind of the gist of what went on in spring cleanup. So the question is, what's the township's board's favor on having a fall cleanup? Do we have a proposed date?
It's usually the first Saturday in October.
First Saturday in October.
October 6th.
October 6th. I will say this to the board. I know that this was kind of traditionally the supervisor's thing, and the supervisor went out there. We could use additional bodies out there to help because it really got busy. And fortunately, last time, a resident pitched in and helped for the day, and Dave Losing showed up, and he took a clipboard and he helped for the day and got everybody checked in, and it went smooth. But there's a lot of work. The other thing I would suggest, and I thought this was interesting, I didn't know this went on, but NACFA, being the fire department that we share with Rose Township, NACFA, the firemen help down at Rose Township, and they help that process. Up here, they don't help. And I thought it was kind of odd, and it turned out I was told they don't help because they're invited by Rose Township, and Rose Township puts $500 into their benevolence fund in return for their helping. And he said, we've never been invited to help. And my attitude was, you don't need to be invited, get over here.
Right.
So I wanted to offer that up to the board as well, so that you understand.
And we did put it in the budget.
We're budgeted for $15,000 for the year, so if you spent $6,000 on each one, you get $12,000. So you got about a $3,000 cushion there.
So there's room for the $500 to the benevolent fund for them helping out. So those are kind of all the facts that I can give you.
Good.
I don't know if you have any additional questions, but what is the board's favor?
I move we go ahead with the fall cleanup with the inviting firefighters. And how would we go about? Do we have to can we put that in one motion, the $500? Contributing $500 to their fund, whatever
Their
they
fund?
choose to use it.
And do it on Do we have
What was the
October
date?
what?
October
October
6th, yeah.
October 6th?
And then what was the times? Did you do
No
8
time.
to 2?
We did. We did 8 to 2, which was shorter than we did the year before. It just made people hurry up. You know, everybody got in that got in. We didn't cut anybody off at 2 o'clock. I think I still had 5 cars in line. Or I think I had 4 cars in line. Somebody pulled in at a quarter. We just ran them through. But last year when we did it till 4 o'clock, we had a lot of downtime in the afternoon. And I think people took breaks for lunch.
Yeah.
And then came in leisurely. This time they just ate in their car. I'm not sure. But
Okay.
everybody came in, so
So from 8 to 2.
8 to 2 would work.
I would support.
So it's been moved by Trustee Feeney, support by Clerk Winchester, that we hold a fall cleanup on October 6th from 8 to 2. Invite the NACFA Fire Department to pitch in, and we will make a $500 donation to their benevolent fund.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
Karen Winchester,
Yes.
George Cullis,
Yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Pat Feeney.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, we can move on to number 3, which is the water request from Shannon Distributors. Shannon Distributors is the development on Dixie Highway up by exit 105. It's that triangle between Dixie and I-75. They have put up a distribution building. Actually, they put up half of a building. They built the building with a blowout wall. As they grow, the intention is to double the size of the building. That would put them at 150,000. They're currently at 150,000 square feet. That would make that building 300,000 square feet. Their intention long-term is to then put another building next to that, which would give them 600,000 square feet of distribution, and they want to add 4 manufacturing buildings of 150,000 square feet each. Shannon Distributors is a supplier for the automotive industry, and they make the bolts. And when I say bolts, they're big bolts like this. That's what attaches the body of your car to the frame of your car. And they have been voted Supplier of the Year 2 years in a row by General Motors. They were nominated for Supplier of the Year by Ford Motor Company and Chrysler. Their intention is to build those buildings that I told you of. However, without having water, or more importantly, without having sewer, they have to allow for septic fields. And the amount of property that would be necessary for the size of a septic field you would need to facilitate roughly between 400 and 500 workers would actually mean they would not end up building one of those buildings because they would need the ground for that. So they have requested water service from Holly Township. As you know, we do not have water service in the township. The village has water service, but because of the location, they are actually closer, within a couple of miles. They would be able to get water from Grand Blanc, but because that's in another county, they have to request water service from the township. We then in turn have to request water service from Grand Blanc Township to get this ball rolling. It is on the agenda tonight, so we can keep that going. This process, by the time we request them, and then they have to request the county, and then we have to have all, by the time this is all done, it's going to take about a year just to get this in place. And there'll be more information coming down the road as we work this project. We have had 2 meetings. The first one initiated by the planner for Shannon Industries, and then the second meeting was initiated by Oakland County Economic Development on the need to move forward on this. So what we need tonight is approval from the board to, this is already zoned a water district.
Water and sewer district.
Water and sewer district. We just have to have a formal request from this board to Grand Blanc Township to keep the ball rolling. So that's why we received a letter from Shannon Industries and or Shannon Fasteners, I'm sorry, and we wanted to put it on the agenda so we could keep the process moving. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve the request to Grand Blanc Township for water service for Shannon Precision Fasteners.
So moved.
It is moved by Clerk Winchester. Support?
Support.
Support by Treasurer Freeman. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so this, we're gonna request Grand Blanc to supply the water. it doesn't, this is not gonna cost Holly Township anything?
No.
Well,
I mean, minimal?
well, what's gonna happen is we're gonna request Grand Blanc Township, and then because Grand Blanc Township gets their water from Genesee County,
Right.
they in turn then have to turn
ask.
around and request Genesee County. So
Okay.
it's a process.
But it's ultimately not, the bill's not gonna be footed by ourselves.
No, we have
No.
an agreement with, for Woodfield in that very northeast corner, and that
Yep.
didn't cost anything.
Okay, second question is, was this all in the original planning for them?
No, originally they were gonna do the septic field, but because of the engineering involved, they switched engineering companies because the problems they
They were-
had the first time
It was
around.
not brought forward to them that it was an option for them. And they had huge expenses with regards to the fire wells, having
Right.
fire wells. That was, I think, $100,000 just alone for the,
Oh, they've got $500,000
Yeah.
into, it was $100,000 for the additional pump, for
right.
the additional well, to be able to bring the water pressure for fire suppression. And the size of the septic field that's required as they go on eats up enough property so that they end up not being able to build the fourth manufacturing building. And just for the public to know, and for the board to know, Shannon Fasteners, as this project unrolls, it'll be about a $40 million investment overall, and it is going to bring between 400 and 500 jobs to this community. And these aren't minimum wage jobs. These are manufacturing jobs and jobs in the distribution center. So, and just as a side note, I think it's a real feather in our cap that Ed Lum, the president and CEO of the company, is a Holly High School graduate and grew up right here. His parents still live in Rose Township, and he brought this company back here because he felt he could find the kind of workers he was looking for his company. So that's a good move.
And there,
It's
it'll,
going to increase the tax base dramatically, too.
Yeah.
400 to 500 employees.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea what their intended sales volume is going to be?
That I don't know. Did you go with us when they did the?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, for a distribution center, you need a fraction of that, so it must be all their manufacturing.
It's the manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Because
building
they're
that,
moving, they're growing out of their Auburn Hills location.
for those of you that are curious, when you drive down Dixie Highway, it's on the left side of the road if you're traveling north or northwest, northwest as you're going up Dixie. It's on the north side. You'll see the building there, Shannon. It's got the big Irish shamrock on the side of the building. When you see that building, the wall that is on the side of I-75 is what they call a blowout wall. And if you look at that building, imagine it duplicated on the other side, and then one more facility like that closer over there. And then on the southern end or southeastern end of that property, they're going to have 450,000 square foot long, narrow, rectangle buildings of manufacture that will feed that distribution center. So I asked the question when they thought the whole project would be done, and he said, how many cars can you sell? So it's going to go along with demand, but they're hoping that every year to 2 years they can add another building. Once they put the manufacturing in, then they'll have to put in more distribution, then they have to put in more, it'll kind of go back and forth. So it's quite a huge development for Holly Township.
I'll just ask the question one more time.
Sure.
So this will not cost Holly Township any significant investment, okay?
No.
Okay, that's all I had.
Any other discussion? We're not spending money on this one, so we can do all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now number 4, reimbursement request for legal invoice. Treasurer Freeman.
I'm requesting reimbursement for a legal bill I incurred during the human resource review for $225.
Okay, in a conversation I had with the township's attorney, I will simply state, she said to bring to the board that there is no legal authority for reimbursement, as there was no request for hiring an attorney. And she said that this is an unlawful public expenditure, that because there was no authorization of the board to hire, therefore the board is not obligated. She said that this was a fact-finding investigation into an employee complaint.
It wasn't an investigation, it was a review.
A review. Well, I'm just reading what I wrote down, or what she said. So I just wanted to include that.
Make a motion that we reimburse for the amount for the legal fee to Mr. Freeman.
I'll support.
Is there support? It is moved by Trustee Feeney. Support by Trustee Ruth. Any further discussion? I will just add that I think we have to be careful when we look at something like this. We set precedents that if the board makes a decision in the future and somebody just decides to hire an attorney, does the board then become obligated to pay that attorney fee without authorizing it in the beginning? That's a concern of mine. Any other discussion?
And my concern is if it's not an authorized expense, how can we approve an unauthorized expense?
Right. Well, and that's why I said the attorney.
Well, I guess you could look at it from this point of view. What did the investigation find any, or the review, however you want to put it?
We can't talk about the content.
No, I didn't say the content. What I'm saying was anything resolved that any party could consider themselves harmed by the fact that they had to seek legal counsel? I mean, that's the way I'm kind of looking at it. If they felt compelled to ask for some legal advice on a matter that that the board brought forward that put them in that position, and in the end nothing came of it, then my question would be: should we not reimburse them for their expense?
Not an authorized expense by statute.
I think the answer to your question there is
It's not
it wasn't
taxpayer-
requested at the time.
It's not
It was
a
done
public
after it. So
expense.
Well, I guess we could just
Right.
call the question then.
Well, if I had been afforded my due process, I wouldn't have needed to seek legal counsel, and I wasn't afforded my due process.
That's your opinion. You were afforded it.
Call the question.
That's the attorney's opinion.
call the question, or do you
I
need to
said
call the vote?
Call the vote. I'm sorry.
Okay. I thought I knew what you meant.
Call the vote. Sorry.
Roll call.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Pat Feeney,
Yes.
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
Karen Winchester,
No.
George Cullis.
No. Motion carries 3-2. We will go on to, now wait a minute, my numbers are right. This is public comment now?
Yes.
Okay. So, public comment at the end. Members of the public can address the board on agenda, or it doesn't have to be agenda items now. Once recognized by the supervisor, comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may extend this time by a majority vote. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. A second public comment is available after new business for all other comments. Anyone wish to speak at public comment? Anybody out in the outside the room wish to speak for public comment?
This is
No,
it.
this is the last one.
This will be the main one.
We had one before you got here.
Yes.
This is the second one.
Well, the first public comment was on the issue on the agenda, right? Not on the public.
The first one was on agenda
Right,
items.
right.
We had public comment. This one is on anything. Remember to state your name and address.
Mark Taylor, 15566 Falk Road. Once again, we would like to bring up the fact I had a short meeting with George Cullis this afternoon. I'm going to write individual letters. I brought this up to the Oakland or the Holly Township Planning Commission on 8/1. of the concerns we have of the even consideration of voting on the approval of the site plan for Holly Hills mobile home community. I'm going to write individual letters so that it is broken up into 4 individual items, but I am, as a citizen and as the leader of my group, looking to get direct, specific answers, because I feel like I'm standing up here like an Alaskan mating swan doing a dance for the last 6 meetings that we've been attending, and nobody really is taking the ball and running with it. Again, my concerns were, within the consent judgment, they had mentioned something about a phase 3. We have not even seen detailed plans or even a initial footprint on phase 3. I don't think the Planning Commission should be in any way sort of thinking about approving a Site 2 plan without at least knowing a Site 3 plan with the number of trailers and with the number of additional cars that will be put onto that road. We are requesting that the entrance for phase 2 not be put directly across from the 3 first initial homes on Folk Road. There is a 1/4 acre site that is the old dump site that is owned by Holly Township, or Village of Holly, I'm sorry. The Village of Holly, that will not be developed for decades on end until that dump is assessed. It's a Superfund site. There's no reason that 1/4 mile of Folk could not be used and that entrance be moved down from the driveway to 15600 Folk Road. It could be moved down there, especially not knowing the footprint of phase 3. If phase 3 has an entrance going in, they could very easily stack these 2 entrances very close to each other in proximity of the length of Folk Road, when they very easily could have moved this out. The hardship that the people that live from that point on down to the end of the road with the additional, call it 750 to 1,000 cars minimum a day, there's no reason whatsoever that entrance has got to be located there. So we are going to request to the Holly Planning Commission directly with a letter that they request and get a hold of Holly Hills and Meritus Corporation to move that down. We still have the issue of the Village of Holly and connecting to the water. I still don't think it's a great idea that we are dumping the affluent water and now we're going to triple this park and we're still dumping it across the street into the Kernan wetlands. I still feel that's a very bad decision that was made 40 years ago and still continues to be a bad decision. We want to look into, I'm going to contact the Village of Holly about that 40-acre dump site, because there are supposed to be contamination wells that are being monitored. One is down at my sister and brother-in-law's house at 15600. There's supposed to be 11 wells. We cannot get answers as to where the other 10 wells are.
Mark,
Yes.
how much have you got left? You're at the
Just another minute. And we want to know where those wells to, and any runoff caused by the park coming across that dump site and then down to my property. In the end, we'll also want Michigan Department of Transportation and Oakland County Road Commission to write us back a report on the destruction of Folk Road or what they intend on doing it. And I'd like it to be more than a 1-sentence response. Thank you.
Right. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
My name's
Let's
Ruben
see,
Cantu. I live
let's
at
see, you're not a
15600 Falk Road. This is what I've heard since I've been living there. This is my normal sounds from the swamp. However, I don't know if it's just this time of the year or what, but the swamp has completely dried up. I walked the property back to the dump site. That's dried up. I know I asked for Dr. Kadlick did a report, a study for the manufactured homes, and he said that the effluent water would only increase the phosphorus and nitrogen into the swamp. Those are the exact same things that are causing the issues down in Florida, phosphorus and nitrogen. So I requested before that the township somehow get that report, because all I was able to see was a video report of his questioning, nothing in writing. I'm not able to pull it up on the websites. I haven't received anything from the DEQ about the discharge, and I was hoping that you guys could, find this report from Dr. Robert H. Kadlick. Of course, his report was, he said he was an expert on the SBRs, the sequential batch reactors, into groundwaters, but not into surface waters. And that's what we have here. The park is dumping into surface waters. So if there's any problem with that, we should be able to get those reports from them, from the runoffs. I did have pictures of the water sites prior to the dump site and the two swamps in front of my house and the one swamp that's on Falk Road. And I have pictures on my phone of them dried up right now. I'm actually standing out in what used to be the swamp earlier this year. So if there's any way that we could get also that test well that's in my yard, if there's any way we can get a report, I've requested something. They said that they haven't had a report actually issued for 8 years. So in these reports, in these requests from the DNR, they said they were supposed to supply the park monthly. Thanks for your time, you guys.
Thank you.
So hopefully we can get some of those reports.
Mr. Cantu, let me respond to Mr. Cantu. Let me respond to part of your comment. The village is working on getting that well tested. Again, the one you made reference to.
Oh, excellent.
I've had that conversation with them. They are working on that.
Okay. As usual, government does work a little slow, so that's probably part of it.
That's a DEQ well.
Yes. You got to get to this.
I don't want to hear anybody speak. Just get up. Okay.
My name is Mary Newland, 16021 Windsor Lane in Holly Hills. I purchased my home in 2005. It was my understanding at the time the community was to be developed into 500 homes. When I found out they're bringing in or planning to do a phase 3, that was never discussed, number one. My home sits in front of the septic system. It is not working. It has not worked properly for at least 8 years now, maybe longer. There is an odor coming from it. And my concern is with the added homes that they have added on Windsor Lane, we are so close. We did have a fire at the front of the park a few months ago. To fight the fire, everybody lost water pressure in the community. That's my number one concern. My number two concern is I do not understand how the septic system is going to accommodate this many homes on that area of land. And yes, the wetlands are right adjacent to where the septic system is. There used to be geese that swam in the retention ponds behind my house all the time. It is so crummy back there, the geese don't go there anymore. We used to have turtles that came down to the retention ponds. We see no turtles, no wildlife. It is green, it is smelly, and I have to agree with the change in whatever. The affluent water is evidently not clean enough to be dumped into the sewer, as I was told by the DEQ all those years ago. And some of you might remember the issues we had with the former owner when we complained about the water in the septic system. So that is my concern. I hope somebody will drive through there and see how close these units are to one another. And that is a major concern of mine. I had to have the EMS come to my home. They can't even turn around in the street because the streets are that narrow. They backed us out. The other thing is there's supposed to be 4 parking places per unit. There is not room for 4 car parking places per unit. So they're parking in the streets. And I hope that will all be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I think I can find it. Are you there?
Someone else for public comment? Out in the hallway out there? Sure. Mark, before you start, I just want to ask one question. Pat, I guess I'm a little confused by her comment. They have a processing plant out there. They have a septic field in addition to that?
No.
I just was a little confused by that. So I just wanted to raise that
Okay,
question.
let me ask you this, because we have the trucks that come in to clean the tanks out, or there's 3 buildings.
Right.
That would be sludge removal.
Sludge
Okay.
removal, yeah.
That now, again, this is going back all those years ago, we would see those trucks a few times a year.
Mhm.
They come in on a weekly basis now.
Right.
And that now I'm no water expert, and I certainly don't know
Oh,
about
neither am
sewage,
I, so.
but that seems a little excessive.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
hope-
supposedly, my understanding is of the system is that they have enough, that it's basically a sewage treatment plant maintained there. So everything should be self-contained. I mean, there shouldn't be any field, there shouldn't be anything outside of the, containment system in that. And odor, I mean, that, you live there. So you know if the odor's increased in that. I mean, because most people from the outside would say, well, you're near a sewage treatment plant, it's got to have some
But there
odor
was an odor.
before. So you're saying this is something
And I
that
visited the sewage treatment facility on Airport Road.
road, right?
And the gentleman took me through, there was no odor there.
So you could tell the difference
So
on that.
we were told that 2 of the motors in the facility have not been working for a long, long time.
Right.
The issue was the cost to replace them.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't been replaced. There's an added burden on it.
Right.
And what's going to happen next? Not to
Right.
mention losing the water pressure when there's a fire.
Correct.
So,
Right.
thank you.
I do know in some of the research that we did that they passed their recent inspection with the health department, so perhaps those have been fixed.
Was it the health department or was it the company that's hired to
No,
maintain?
no.
Was the health
No, the
department?
certification comes from the health department. But these are just,
Are they qualified?
Okay, well, again, all these years ago when we had the water issue, we had E. coli. We were like Flint on a much, much smaller scale. We couldn't get the state's attention. We couldn't get the DEQ's attention. We went to Oakland County and continually had the water tested. Oakland County finally moved on it because so many homes were failing. And yet the DEQ kept telling us everything's wonderful. So I have to tell you, after all these years, I think somebody's zooming somebody.
Patrick, when you have your planning commission meeting, I'd be interested just to ask the question about a septic field.
Right.
on the 2
Well, that
pumps.
definitely. I mean, like I said, I was not under the impression. I'd say probably people on the planning commission would be under the impression that the whole system is all contained as regular sewer system. When you're saying septic field or even the odor in itself, that's something that you just said. You've been to one location and that serves a much larger community, and they don't seem to have the problems.
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, you're next. I'll get you out there.
Good evening. Mark Cornwell, 12415 North Holly Road, former trustee and 15-year planning commissioner. I have a lot of things written down here, but I'm not going to have, I got 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to just be brief here, and we can get back to some of these other issues at another meeting. I think it's interesting to hear the discussion and what's been going on about Holly Hills, and then also to continue to hear about the Shanahan development and expansion up there. As you know, I probably was the only one that voted against that development. Not because I'm anti-business, not because I'm anti-growth, but because I did not believe that manufacturing facility should be on a piece of property adjacent to a mining site, which has highly pervious soils, on septic systems. And I would encourage you not to approve any future developments in that regard until such time that there's sewer. Now, This all plays into Holly Hills, folks, was before my time. I'm certainly not opposed to it. I think there's a place in every community for those kinds of developments. Actually, someday I wouldn't mind being in one of those places, maybe down south, and come back to one in the summer. But at any rate, the fact that that judge got a consent judgment on the township and then gave the developer whatever zoning they wanted, if I understand what occurred correctly, was, some judge, some other part of the county makes this decision that affects people in our communities. Well, folks, this stuff is going on all levels. All levels. It goes on with the DNR. Did you know the DNR sold gas and oil permits in Seven Lakes State Park in Holly Rec? Do you know the DNR sold that corner lot on Fish Lake and Grange Hall without ever talking to anybody about it? That's our government. And they're not being responsible to us as citizens, and is flat out wrong. So I think the main reason, and I want to kind of go back to, I believe the importance of the Planning Commission. I've kind of seen a diminishing of the Planning Commission over the years. And the Planning Commission represents 7 additional minds and an ability to think about things related to this community. And consequently, if the responsibilities of a Planning Commission are to look at the overall development of our community, they need to be kept abreast of everything. Everything. Property acquisitions, farmsteads, all those things. They need to have the detail and the information to make good decisions. Because, admittedly, they're just an advisory committee to the board. You guys make the final decisions. But to fail to take 7 citizens in our community and not take advantage of their expertise, their minds, and looking at issues important to our community is something we're missing. I won't go into the parks tonight, but that's another area that I think needs to all come together as well. So.
And your 3 minutes are up.
Yep.
So thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Good job.
Gentleman in the hat there.
Which one?
I said gentleman.
Oh, right, he said gentleman. Oh, he said gentleman, that's okay.
Yeah. I said gentleman. I thought that was pretty clear.
I got you.
Hi, I'm Cliff Peixoto, 16490 Tucker Road, and I live on Lacey Lake. And I'm the guy that gets all that water from that plant. And back in 1992, I was part of the consent judgment, which, of course, the township, we lost that. And DEQ said that would be the best plant ever built. Well, I would like you guys to ask the DEQ in writing. They had eight failures in 2014, and so on and so forth. Did anybody fix it? And what was done to fix it? Now, as a resident, and a sewer goes in front of your property, you're required by state law to tap that sewer. You can't put a septic in. There's now a sewer line to the high school, right in front of there. So I would say to the township, why don't you get with the village and negotiate a minimal fee for these guys to tap into the sewer. We know it's partially clean water. And do away with the dump on the aquifer all the time. It's not too much to ask. Because if the point is this, okay, I'm standing here today talking to you, but if that contaminates that lake, I'm telling you, there's going to be one hell of a lawsuit. I was part of the other lawsuit, and I'm not afraid to do it again. So please consider that, and try to do a minimal hookup. They take one main in there, they can hook it up. But the part would be, the village needs to give you some compensation to to dump it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say it was Mr. DeSoto? Oh. So just so you know, sir, I did reach out to the Village of Holly. I did set up a meeting between myself, the village, and the engineer. And the engineer and the developer do know that there is an opportunity to hook up to the village. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to force that, but it has been offered. They do know it's there. Their response is that it's plan B for them at this point. So I just wanted you to know we.
That's why they make lawyers.
I just wanted you to know we took that step to go that direction, and the engineers and so forth for the township are aware of that. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir. Whoop, I got two of you. The gentleman behind you raised his hand first, so you come on up, and then the gentleman in the black and leaves on his shirt. Not sure. It's not exactly Hawaiian shirt, but close.
Hi, my name's Terry Spurlock. I live at 16077 Lincoln Drive, Holly Hills. I live right at the very corner of Lancaster Way and Lincoln Drive. For these trucks to go through, the septic trucks to go way to the back, they drive by my house every day, over and over and over. I know what she's saying about the smell. I live blocks away from her, and every once in a while I can catch a whiff of it. My neighbors can hear it, and it's just not right. I see Highland treatment trucks come in every morning just before 9 o'clock, and they're there until 10:30. They're always back there. They're always checking the pumps, checking the generators. I know they just replaced a $30,000-$40,000 generator that has been burnt out for a while. And I also know, talking with their people I know, I don't want to get nobody in trouble, but there's been serious amount of problems with that water that's just not being said to everybody. And I can tell you right now, I've had to call Andy Statewide plumbers out to my house. I have a water heater, 4 years old, and I've had them come out in the past year and a half, 5 times, because of all the corrosion in it. You know, and I kid you not, I can give you document on that. But I just wanted you guys to really know she's completely right. And me living on the corner, I see these trucks every day. They come in, and once in a while, I'll see the septic trunk come driving through all day long, in and out, as quick as they can fill it, go out, come back. And I need to talk to you after the meeting. I got some information for you guys. And our community right now has 250 people, homes in it?
Yes.
About that? And they're wanting to put 900 people in here? 900 units? Come on, I mean, the new phase they just put in, 70 homes. It's incredible, the trouble we've had. I mean, stacked right next to each other. It's a typical trailer park. We all moved into this place for a nice place to live.
And not a treated farm.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's real nice. Most everybody keep their homes up, but it's I mean, you wanted to add 600 homes to Holly. Just imagine all the trouble there's going to be. You know, all of the extra police that needs to be, you know, here. I've heard from our old manager that got fired. They even want to pave Clock Road because of all these new homes they're wanting to put in. Hundreds of new homes, you know. Just, it's, I hate to say it. Yes, they own the property, but there should be laws to help protect the property that's already there, to protect the people that has moved in. know, yeah, we're going to bring another 600 homes. When I moved in, this is it. There's going to be no more building. And I heard this straight from the township supervisor. Me and my wife come in, and we're talking to him, and he told us the story of the original owner cutting down these trees. He's wanting to build condos back there and do his own expansion without anybody's talk. So they shut him down, and soon enough he sold out.
No,
Pretty much the story that went.
he never paid his bills, and they took it back.
Yeah. But anyways, that's all I got to say today.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
My name's Edward Mills, nicknamed Jack. I live at 549 Riviera Shores Drive, Holly Township. I'm new at this experience. I've never gotten up before this board before, so hang on. I got a letter in the mail just the other day, or I should say a leaflet dropped off. And in it, there's some questions that, or some material that really kind of bothered me. And in it, it said something about when complete, Phase 2 is going to go, and Phase 3 will follow. And when complete, there'd be 708 manufactured homes on top of the aquifer that supplies all the drinking water for all of Holly Township residents. And there are many concerns in what the effect is going to be on the aquifer. Well, one thing I'd like you to do is define an aquifer for me. And secondly, if this is going to endanger our drinking water and the purity of our water, then there's really only one answer for this, and that's a big no. And I know that money talks, but this is not right. Thank you.
And Jack?
Yeah.
You did good for a first time.
Probably won't be the last.
Yes, sir.
My name's Tom Welty. I live at 16104 Fairfax Court in the park. I was here 2 weeks ago. I guess I didn't get the message across. The board, the township, has no authority over Holly Hills Park. Absolutely none. And all of these complaints, the board can't do anything about it. The township can't do anything about it. I was hoping to talk to the township attorney, because he's where you've got to go. He has to sue the state and change the state law. That's going to take some money. So you've got to decide what the cost is that you're willing to pay. Right now, you're at the park's mercy 100%. There's absolutely nothing you can do. You have no control over anything that they do. I don't know what more to say. You know, I've researched all of these problems that have been brought up, and I know a little bit of the background of all of them. I know Jay Zabo robbed the place blind. He took out half the pumps out of the sewage plant. I'm assuming they've been replaced, but I don't know. The DEQ does come in and check whatever their requirement is, monthly or weekly, or I'm assuming they're doing that. But again, you guys have no control even over those people. So I hate to see you guys beating a dead horse. It's just until you get the township attorney and the board behind them to change the state law, there's no reason to come back here, fellas. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? I got 2 hands. This one was up first, and then I'll come back over to you.
My name is Lisa Hogan, 112 Hearts Drive. So there's, again, a lot of misinformation floating around out there. So that's why we were asking that the Holly Hills agenda be put on every township meeting so we could get real-time information. So the last planning commission meeting we were at, we were told that there was the attorney point of view, that the attorneys had been consulted and that they had some type of information that was going to be shared at this meeting. So I'm wondering if we can share some information with the citizens about what involvement the attorney has or what point of view they have. And I agree with you. There's really nothing we can do. We literally got screwed before, and I don't know what there is that we can be done. What we can do is control what happens outside the perimeter of that area, though. And I think we need to be very vocal about that piece of it. But if you can give us some update about what the attorney's doing, that would be appreciative.
Okay. What I can tell you is on the agenda, number 5 is considered closed session to discuss attorney-client communication. That is why we're going into closed session, to discuss the communication from the attorney. So, name and address.
Reagan Rockwell, 836 Holly Bush Drive, Holly, Michigan, 48442.
Go ahead, it's your 3 minutes.
It's my understanding that there's a consent of judgment that we may be able to obtain down at Oakland County Circuit Court, and there were, from 30 years ago, 3 stipulations that had to be met for Holly Hills to move forward in this judgment, or in their development. I don't know if that's true, if anybody can attest to that.
You can get a copy of the consented judgment at the township office. The consented judgment is pretty basic. It states that, and understand a consented judgment, and none of us were here at the time it took place. I've heard a few dates out there. It's 1990, just so we're all in the same year. The consented judgment was entered into. It's consent. It means it was an agreement between the two. And in that consented judgment, it says that Holly Township, that the site plan had already been approved, and that Holly Township could not obstruct or interfere with the process going forward. It then said in the next paragraph, and I released some of this information and had some pass-outs at one of the previous meetings, and we can get more of those for you. There's, in the next paragraph, it tells you that there are 4 options or 4 departments that you can write letters to. One of them is the Mobile Home Commission, the DEQ, that type of thing. And we created a letter that tells you the name and the address and the phone number of who to contact for those. And then the 4th paragraph, which is handwritten, and it's my assumption, and yes, I said assumption, that when they were standing in court, somebody must have said, "So you're telling me we can't even police them?" And the judge must have looked at somebody and said, "Well, of course you can police them." And it's handwritten that Holly Township has policing authority in the park. Those are the 4 paragraphs. You can get a copy of that judgment in the office and see all the details.
I want to thank you guys for listening to the citizens tonight. It seems that you are, to me it does seem like you are trying to protect the citizens. I know you're probably
It's
trying to...
frustrating when your hands are tied.
It's probably, I'm sure you guys are probably also trying to be cautious to prevent a lawsuit. As the gentleman in the back mentioned, lawsuits can come from both sides. But I think as someone who does casework in this community about our kids, and as I'm driving to work today, I think of the Flint water crisis and what are our kids going to grow up with. This is such a beautiful area, as each of you know, with so many natural resources. We're hearing so many things have changed about the wildlife in the area, and the wildlife speaks. If we don't take care of the earth, how is it going to take care of us? And water, as we know, is essential for everything. Lastly, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Cullis, and I'd like to thank you, Ms. Winchester, for your no votes earlier. I thank you for your integrity. If I were to have an issue at work and just go out and hire an attorney, My employer wouldn't hire an attorney. They wouldn't pay for an attorney for me. I think you guys should be ashamed of voting yes, those of you who voted yes earlier. You guys are public servants, and I hope you think about that, because we know who you are, and we are the ones who vote. No disrespect.
Anyone else for public comment? Oh, I was just going to say, out in the hall. Come on in.
Hi, Genevieve Rainey, 134 Park Ave. So this is really a comment to the people that are concerned about what's going on in Holly Hills. And I was going to say, what you really need to do is do some kind of fundraiser and get together and hire your own environmental engineer. I really think that's going to be the only solution in order to stop, halt, or improve this development, because there's, like several people just said, there's not much that the government can do here. Because this is regulated by the state, because the DEQ is a state government, you really need to go above this level of government and really make some noise. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is with someone that knows this material very intimately. And this is especially true after they start building and after they start bringing people in. Have that environmental engineer come and check the effluent and have them keep an eye on that. As soon as those levels go up over what the Michigan law says, then that person can help you bring the hammer down on these developers. So I really think, it's expensive. It could be an expensive solution, but I think that is your best option for mitigating the risk. And unfortunately, if anything does happen, it's probably going to be the taxpayers that fund the bill, because we're the ones that have to deal with all the Superfund sites that have to do with these environmental cleanups. It's not the developers. So that's what my recommendation would be. That's it.
Thank you. Public comment, Sue? Some of you I know by first name, some of you I don't. I apologize. You don't have nameplates to help me.
Sue Julian, 3505 Radley Lake Road in Rose Township. It is not true that you cannot open a consent judgment. When there is new evidence, you can go back. All parties have to be involved. In my other life, I'm about to do it in a different township because we brought all the parties to the table. So your job, protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the people of this township, if there is new evidence, I'm going to make the assumption that a judge did not have that evidence 1990 when that consent judgment was there, but you have subsequent information to go back and you can open a consent judgment. So when you listen to your lawyer in closed session, I think that's one of the questions that you want to ask. And then as your lawyer for the township has a dual responsibility to give you the best possible advice, but also in a sense to protect the township. So my question to you is protecting the township mean avoiding a lawsuit, or does it mean helping you protect health, safety, and welfare? That's it.
Monica Pashota, 16490 Tucker Road. Lacey Lake is our lake. In 1990, my husband, Cliff Pashota, Don Pashota, Donald Pashota, Lloyd Kernan were the only people that fought tooth and nail to eliminate the whole septic trash that we're getting in our lake today. there was 5 people. I'm glad to see all of you are finally on our side. 20 years too late.
Still working on it.
But if it was this much of a bother to everybody here 20 years ago, the trailer park would never have the septic dump that they have today. That's what bothers me. 20 years ago, nobody, village, township, nobody did anything for us. Thank you, and thank you guys for working. Hopefully it's not too late.
All right.
Anyone else for public comment? Sir?
My name is John Ewan. I live at 15460 Falk Road. When you talk to your lawyer in your closed session, another question that I would like asked, or for you to ask of them, is can, or at some point can, Holly Township inspect the water at Holly Hills for those folks that live there, rather than just the Highland whatever. It seems to me that the water back there should be checked by some governmental agency, whether it's the township or the county or something. There should be a monthly check, or weekly or monthly. There should be some kind of check for those people living in there that there have been all kinds of problems that have been stated. Another thing I'd like to just broach is how much water. I mean, I heard that they want to eventually 5 more big wells. Like, how much water can they suck out of there without like sinkholes and other types of, I don't know. I'm not an engineer on water, but I just know that there's water under the ground, and if you're going to suck out, millions and millions of gallons of water, has there been a study how much water can be sucked out of there? I am going to keep coming to the meetings because Falk Road is not in the park. I live on Falk Road. I've lived on Falk Road almost 27 years. I love Falk Road. I like the narrow road that it is. I like the trees. So another question maybe for the lawyer or that you're going to meet with is what can we do proactively as far as what Falk Road is going to look like in the next 2 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next, they're saying, oh, they're not going to pave it. Well, that's right now, that's really nice to say, and that's easy to say right now. But in 8 years from now, when there's 1,400 cars a day going up and down Falk Road, and I call it Little Falk Road, but it's Little Falk Road like the little engine that could. Why don't we? And I would be willing to work on a committee with the planning board or with you guys or whatever it is, so that we can shape what Falk Road's going to look like. If there are water lines in the future, instead of just ripping the trees down, can they be put behind the trees? If there's a sewer, if it is going to be hooked up to sewer someday, can we be proactive and say, hey, let's not just rip all those 300-year trees down. Let's put it behind, or let's put it somewhere else. Gas lines, electrical lines, all these kinds of things, and somehow keep it dirt, save the trees. In the 2 weeks ago at the planning board, I brought a tape measure with me, and my wife and I stood out here. The biggest tree on Falk Road is 6 feet across, and it's 16 feet around. That's the biggest one. We have other trees that are 4 feet across and things like that. Wouldn't that be a horrible shame in the future to destroy all of that? So if there's any way of being proactive when it comes to what is Falk Road going to look like in the future, I would be willing to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say this in regards to your concern about where would the water lines go. For those of you that don't notice this, but I happen to know because I asked the question, when you go by on East Holly Road, just west of the entrance to the park, up on a hill, there's a little brick building. That is the Village of Holly water connection. It goes right past there in order to get to the high school, and that's a, I don't know if you call it a substation, but it's an access point. So it's already right there. So that's one of the points we've tried to make pushing forward.
Excuse me, so is the sewer.
I'm sorry?
Excuse me, so is the sewer.
That was my point.
Yeah.
That it was right there. Anyone else for public comment? I got 2 hands up. Yours is up first. And then I got the one in the back.
My name is Sandy Martin, and I'm at 16105 Fairfax Court. I would like to correct Mr. Finney. We are not a trailer park. We are a manufactured home, okay? And there is a huge difference between a trailer park and a manufactured home. So I would like to correct you on that.
I apologize.
The other thing, when Holly Hills was established, it was to be nothing but homes for sale. It was not anticipated to be rentals whatsoever. In the course of switching management, ownership, things have changed. The people in the very beginning were under the impression that it was a retirement community, approximately 250 homes. That has changed in the course of time, again with different management companies coming in. We now have approximately 240 homes in there, and half of those, almost half, are rentals. We all know what happens on the majority of what happens to rental homes or rental apartments or whatever. It does get trashed. There's money spent to replace it. If you want to know what this little new 80-some-odd homes that were brought in last year looks like, drive down Sheffield, go around the circle and come back out on Coventry. You can get into that area through Lancaster. All of us that live there are extremely upset over the condition of those homes. There's no rooms for garages. Many of us bought into Holly Hills with that being our last place that we would be staying at. We all paid a pretty good price. Most of us all have garages. A good percentage of us do. And these are 1 to 2 car garages. We maintain our homes almost immaculate conditions. We care, and as you as homeowners that would spend some money on a home would not want cheap homes coming into your property like what these people are feeling over on Falk Road, having this additional amount of homes coming in. And from my understanding, there was to be a cap of no more than 500 homes total. We are at 240, so that leaves approximately 250 homes left to go in that area. I really hope that everybody takes into consideration all of us that are there. The water condition is the very truest thing. We've had a new water heater for 4 years. We've had to replace the heating element twice. And the reason why is because of the condition of the water. And this is what the guy said. I said, but you were here last year and you just replaced the heating element. He said, your water, take a look at it. And he started scraping the bottom of the tank, and it was absolutely disgusting. I thank you for the time, and I'm sorry.
Thank Mrs. Martin, just help me. You said drive in Sheffield to
If you take Lancaster,
Lancaster.
go left on Sheffield and go around the circle and come out Coventry.
Coventry.
Yep, it'll go right around in the circle and you'll see all 80 homes that were put in right here.
I will say this, it's not going to help you any, but the water in Holly has a high lime content. We are replacing a bathroom faucet for the 3rd time in 8 years. We have since bought a water softener. I feel your pain. Mrs. Cantu.
Okay, hello, Denise Cantu, 15600 Falk Road. And I just wanted to explain what an aquifer is because one of you said it, but I didn't know what it was. And I'm sure a lot don't. But I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. It's
Isn't
just
that a
small.
green- it's a green pine tree with a lot of water.
There you go. Okay. An aquifer is a rock formation capable of producing potable water for many communities. The water resides in the spaces between the rock and the sand particles. The Marshall Aquifer is made up of a sandstone, a type of rock that is formed from compressed sand. It is porous, which makes it productive. However, because of its porosity, it is also fairly vulnerable to contamination and can be overused if too much is pumped with wells. Many of the most productive aquifers are comprised of sandstone. Sorry, it just makes me just really sad to think that this ever happened. And the one woman who if she said that if there was more of us, where are you? If there was more of us when you were fighting it, see? Yes. And we didn't know this was happening. But when we first started, when we found out about this 6-7 months ago, we thought they were tree trimmers, and they were surveyors, and it was only like 4 of us at that point. And look at now. So I want to ask everybody to let your neighbors know that what they're trying to do to us, to the water, to our community is not right. It's gonna damage. It's gonna hurt the water, and that's all it's about. The environment. It's wrong what they did and big money. Oh, and then you said that if we raise some money, but I don't think we could ever raise enough money because they have so much money. So we need to scream. We need a whole bunch of people. We got to start screaming loud and getting the news people here, and just it's got to get really big. So I love seeing all your people here. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Anyone out in the audience or out in the hallway? Leon? Yep. I wanted to check the hallway because I can't see out there. I don't know how many folks I have. I know people.
Good evening. My name is Leon Hutchins. I'm a former Holly resident of 40 years. I now reside in Heartland. And the reason I'm addressing the board and the public today is I just wanted to get some things out in the open and let you guys know that I worked as a contractor for the Holly Township Parks in the year of 2006 as their softball program director, and then again in 2017 as a maintenance person. I started in April and ended in December. At the end of December, I went to the Township Parks to find out what was going to be going on for taxes. And I talked to Karen, and she gave me a spreadsheet, as you can all see. When she did the spreadsheet, I found a whole bunch of receipts, checks that were in my name. And not my signature. I never did this work. There's a whole lot of it. Just so you know, it's all right here. So if anybody wants to see it, I have it. And also, the work I did, because I told you, I worked for the parks in 2017. It's all right here. But I will tell you this is not my signature. I never made these receipts out. So I guess it's up to the board and the Township Parks Board to figure this out. that's really all I have to say today, because I think there's going to be some impending investigations. So there you go.
All right, guys, this is my first time ever speaking really like this, but I'm Stephen LaPlante, 3036 Grange Hall. I'll be the nominee for Republican Parks Commissioner. So with that all said, I just kind of wrote something while I've been sitting here. What I say here today pretty much is just my opinion. Whether what was said be proven to be whatever it ends up being, it's neither here or there. It is one thing irresponsible at best case scenario. There's no accountability in that board anymore. It seems like they don't want people even at their meetings. I mean, I tried to find out when a meeting was. I couldn't get an answer. It's kind of like a clubhouse, He-Man Woman Haters Club kind of thing out there. I mean, really. I talked to a parent a couple days ago who thought the sign up for football was over. We were all told to look for kids to sign up because they needed kids to get 2 teams together. So if they don't get enough kids, my son doesn't get to play. She never answered, or the department never answered the phone, never gave a call back. She said she called 5 times, left 5 messages. We pay for that phone. That can't happen. I mean, it just can't. I grew up on these parks. I played on these parks. Played every sport on these parks. They used to be beautiful. We used to have very competitive leagues. It just seems like it's a job that somebody doesn't want. I know quite a few people that are more than willing to do these jobs, step up, take responsibility, have accountability in failure and success. There's just nothing. I mean, I can't stand by and watch the demise. I want my son to have the best of the best. I want all our children to have the best of the best, and they deserve that. We as Holly deserve that. Our parks deserve that. We need enthusiasm. We need ideas, effort, just a little effort. I mean, that's all I really have to say. I mean, we need some effort in there. That's it.
Anyone else for public comment? I got a hand wave there in the back.
Hi, my name's Michelle Renard, 237 West Rose Street. I just wanted to comment back to Mr. LaPlante's point. My son plays for the Holly Rock on the football. I help with the fundraising. We have had no issues whatsoever getting kids signed up. I know myself, I've passed out probably 200 of my cards trying to recruit more kids to play. If they've called, they've been answered. That's the first any of us have heard about not getting a call returned. So, I mean, just that's from my point of view. I've seen firsthand it's getting taken care of. We have had a very big lack of parent involvement, huge, in fact. So, I personally have been at the meetings. I have talked to people. Parents want to be involved. We want them there. We need them there. But they are getting contacted. We are taking care of it. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yes.
Just to clarify, your position with the parks is?
Fundraising coordinator for the Holly Junior Broncos. I'm not part of the parks. I'm on the parent board for the football.
Fundraiser coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Broncos.
Which I asked for volunteers, and we haven't gotten any of those. So, thank you. No.
Thank you. Mr. Engelberg.
Tony Engelberg, 115 Coggeshall. I'm going to take a deep breath. I've been aware of this check forgery and check fraud that has been going on with the parks for about 3 months now, and have kept my tongue bit because, truthfully, it was Mr. Hutchins. It needed to be him to bring it out into the public. We need the Oakland County prosecutor and the Attorney General of the state of Michigan to do a complete audit of everything that has gone on in this parks board. And I'm not just talking about finances, but I'm talking about decision making and everything else that has gone on. There have been repeated Open Meeting Act violations. They've moved meetings without providing proper public notice. They've made motions that are, especially and including in the last minute in your packets, you saw that they went into executive session. There is no such thing as executive session for this type of board. That motion was invalid. It doesn't matter what the reason for doing it is. And they can't go back now and say, oh, we meant closed session. The motion was made, the motion was seconded, the motion was voted on. They made an illegal motion. That opens that board up to a lawsuit, which we, the taxpayers, are going to end up fighting or paying to defend. There is 20% of finances missing right now, or I'll change that to unaccounted for. In the budget you guys received, the Village of Holly has been paying Holly Township Parks 20% of KRCC revenue for about the last 2 years for the director's time going to the community center. Look up on your budget that was submitted that you guys approved under revenue. It is not there. And you can't tell me they're playing a shell game with the money and hiding it somewhere else. When one municipality writes a check to another municipality, it needs to be there and highlighted because that is a government-to-government transaction. The hiring process for that board, we have the college student daughter of the director who has been made program coordinator. I don't know exactly how much money she's making, but let's just put it this way. I'm now an assistant coach on the Holly High School football program. Last week, we needed lifeguards for an event we had this Saturday. Messages were left by our junior varsity coach for 5 days before we finally got a text message Saturday morning to confirm that the lifeguards would be there. I had to wake up or get a hold of Supervisor Cullis at about 11:30 Friday night because nobody could get a hold of the director. And if the director is on her comp time, which one way or another I guess she's entitled to, somebody else needs to, in that department, needs to be answering the phone and held accountable and responsible. So it is time for us to stop rewarding poor job performance. This township board has enabled it. The village has enabled it. And I'm not going to say that we need to go through the taxpayer expense of recalling this board, but we need to, I'll wrap up here in a second. We need to look at how we are going to go forward in what is in the best interest of our residents, because there is illegal, corrupt, and immoral activity going on, and there's no accountability because they hold their meetings in the woods instead of out here in public in front of everybody else. Thank you.
We must be off Holly Hills.
You can't just leave, you gotta say something.
I was going to say, you're walking by the podium. Here's your chance.
Unprepared as I was.
Okay, anyone else for public comment, minus the exitors? Stacy, are you public comment? Okay. I wasn't sure if you were leaving with the rest of the crowd.
Stacy Taylor, 15566 Falk Road. So for the last 2 days, I've been digging through the files a little bit more. Like, I need more documentation. But I actually owe John Renish an apology because I hadn't really gone through all of his boxes. Denise and Ruben had reviewed them and watched all of the tapes and stuff like that. So I'm going to start off, and I know it's back in the day, but 1979, this was the Holly Township Planning and Zoning meeting that was first addressing Mr. Miner's plan to put, when he bought this property, he bought 5-acre agricultural. He wanted to do one half acre lots with manufactured homes that were 1,000 square feet big. They did not want to, the Oakland County said no, too dense on the aquifer. So I'm reading all of these peoples, and there's 45 people that are just like you all that were at this meeting, and they all spoke. And the one that stuck out to me, because they're all saying the same things we are, was Barbara Renish, who was at 15321 Falk Road, and her husband's been here at a lot of these meetings. She also challenged the right of the applicant to make application for land which she claims he does not own. She claims she researched the abstract and determined the title was being litigated, which it was. It's that cutout that y'all know about on the map. She also expressed concern with the possibility of the developer backing out after setting zoning and the likelihood that the land would then be developed into a manner more detrimental to the area. 1979, the lady was spot on. So, 1986, this is Minor's original map. He already wanted completion with 653 homes in 1986. Completion. He hadn't even out-wrestled it from the community yet. He did not have consent judgment. And yeah, you probably want to see this. It's kind of like the guy had a plan. He was going to become a millionaire, man, let me tell you. Okay, so big problem happened is our neighbors all fought this, right? And they said, hey, man, we got to protect this aquifer. This should be 1982. They won a lawsuit to protect the aquifer. The then township clerk, Jeannie Ghoulish, she made a clerical error. It nullified that, okay? This is going to be really scary to everybody, but it is to me and alarming and concerning. That is the only lawsuit and piece of information that we cannot find. It's documented in the township files that it happened. There's 3 people living that know that it's happened. There's 2 sets of deceased people's books that we've gone through. We cannot find it, okay? That's not cool. And I have questions.
When you say can't find it, what is it?
We've used a porthole to document that winning lawsuit in 1982 that Jeannie Galouche made the error from.
You can't find the error that she made?
We cannot find it. Well, the error I think we have, but we cannot find the lawsuit. That was won at the courthouse, and it's been extensively researched for by somebody that has ability, that used the portal. My husband's sister works in another department there. She's looked in addition, and she should be able to find it. She's been there forever. Okay, so let's get past that. The people that made those clerical errors and were making all these decisions back in the day, recall petitions for almost everybody sitting on the board at that time. Then, 1992, Minor made his big error.
How much more do you have?
Can you give me a few minutes? Because I probably know more about this than anybody else in this room.
Yeah, give her time.
Yep. Now, I'm not saying that she has a problem. It's just we have a procedure. The board, we can take a vote to grant her more time. We just have to follow procedure.
Perfect.
Motion, we grant her more time.
Motion by Mr. Feeney.
Support.
Support by Mr. Ruth. All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, any discussion, I'm sorry.
Let's set a time limit, please.
Oh.
It's not too much thicker.
So another 3 minutes?
Another 3 minutes? Sure.
Stacy, another
Yeah.
3 minutes?
Perfect. I'll be fast.
Okay.
Okay, in 1990...
You gotta let us vote.
Okay, sorry. You said be fast.
When you get permission. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Go.
Thank you. In 1992, Minor made the big problem, the big error. He all of a sudden decided he's going to approach everybody for he wants to discharge into the wetlands. All heck broke loose. There are so many reports that say no, deny, absolutely not, horrible, endanger the drinking water, etc. And this is from Dr. James Gregg, the supervisor at the time for Holly Township, and he says, when the township entered into the consent judgment with Mr. Minor regarding the park development, it was envisioned that the trailer park would function in a manner similar to all other residents of Holly Township, i.e. being self-contained with water and wastewater remaining on site and no significant impacts to adjacent properties. Based on the information provided by the applicant and testimony provided at the public hearing for the proposed discharge permit, it would appear that this project will not be self-contained and will impact groundwater supplies beneath the site and surface water south of the discharge point. Okay, I'm going to keep it short, but in the end he said, I wish to state that the township's opposition to any facility which has the potential to adversely affect the groundwater and or surface water supply for our residents are dependent upon for their drinking water and recreational needs. Okay, so now we get to the Department of Natural Resources. They said you will need to file an application for a 203 permit, Wetlands Act for discharge. We have received memo that you also need to look for the fens. So I'm going to get quick on that. This is the 203. This right here, they decided they didn't need after all. And guess what? They really should look into that. And I really would like to see them actually perform that. Ruth Johnson, she fought this in the 80s, she fought it in the 90s, she fought it, she's aware today. This is the smoking gun that says that there was collusion and probably corruption. I will go as far as that, and I'm quoting what she's saying. People made decisions to skip reports that there was government, there was caved under pressure. Let me read the headline of it. Internal DNR communications and letters, FYOIA. It is dated October 13th, 1992. This needs to be revisited. This is just recovered from the boxes this morning. This is a chronological order of those communications. And we were trying to find these, and guess what? John Renish's book. Boxes. I found them today. So we are now in the process of looking through these, but the DNR needs to be held accountable too, because there's a lot of stuff that went down that there's a lot of questions. Most of this is covered in the packet that every one of you have on the Ethical Moments page. There is evidence that the wetlands are being impacted. This is the discharge point. This is what the waters that you see in the background. That's where all this discharge is going. With that, I am out of time. There is so much more. Thank you so very much. Really fast in closing, I just want to say we are waiting answers, results. We have agencies contacted. We are asking for review from these agencies to address our concerns. We want full reports and all skip standards upheld and revisited before any expansion is approved. The safety on the outside of this park must be protected and ensured by today's standards and laws.
Anyone else for public comment? Nobody dares to follow that?
We're all out of breath.
Okay. We are going to move on to consideration of closed session to discuss attorney-client.
I have a question before we do that. Just want to make
sure. I'm sorry.
Get it clear. Does the Planning Commission have any requirement to review a site plan or anything in this? Is anything being brought in front of the
We can give what our understanding at this point, Tony, you can jump in here, is that we can make recommendations to go to the State Manufactured Homes Commission. But our question is,
but you can't.
What area do we actually have any say on?
That's the question I have.
And that's our question. Okay. That's what we'd like to have answered with the consent.
Okay.
The consent agreement doesn't really explain exactly, what exactly are we barred from doing.
Gotcha. Okay.
I would remind you that we have a Republican candidate for governor who is the Attorney General. And we have a Democratic candidate who is...
Dana Nessel.
I'm sorry?
Dana Nessel is the Democratic nominee for Attorney General.
No. I said the gubernatorial candidate.
Yeah, you're talking about Republican.
Is it? Yeah. Just throwing it out there. It's an election year.
So we should add that to the agenda then, instead of before we go into closed session. We need to amend that and then add it to the agenda.
We're not ready to review it, other than to have the board send it, agree to send it to the attorney. Okay. It has been brought to my attention that the attorney's not here this evening, but we're going to be going in closed session and meeting with her through a conference call. And we did that because when we have the attorney here, we pay her by the hour from the time she leaves, comes out here, and goes all the way back home. So we thought it made more sense to have her here. However, she has been watching. So she called.
She texted me.
She texted to inform us that we need to amend our agenda to go into closed session for the attorney-client privilege, not for the real estate. We can add the real estate item as what now would be number 6 on the agenda.
We can go into closed session for the sale.
No, purchase of real estate only, not sale.
That's what she's telling us on the text. So we'll put it down as number 6 on the agenda and deal with it when we come back out of closed session. But for the
that will require a motion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So I'll make the motion that we amend the agenda so that we are going into closed session to discuss attorney-client communication And when we come back out, number 6 will be consideration of offer to purchase. Support?
Support.
Motion by Supervisor Cullis. Support Clerk Winchester. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now,
George?
Yeah.
I don't know, this had been brought up before since we didn't have the closed session at the Planning Commission about having our chair of a Planning Commission in on our discussion.
We did ask the attorney for the board. We did ask the attorney because the Planning Commission has the right to legal counsel on this question, and it was their counsel. I did ask the attorney if the chair to the Planning Commission could be a part of the closed session, and she said it was legal if the board made the motion to allow that to happen. It saves the Planning Commission from having to have her come out again. We couldn't do the whole Planning Commission because that would constitute a quorum and would require a separate meeting. So it's up to the board if we want to include Tony Engelberg, the chair of the Planning Commission, in the closed session to discuss the
I'll make the motion that we include Tony Engelberg as part of the closed session.
A motion to include Tony Engelberg, the chair of the Planning Commission.
I would support.
Support by, motion by Feeney, support by Clerk Winchester. Any further discussion? None appearing, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So, did we vote on the motion to go into closed session?
No.
Okay. Now, let us go back and vote on the motion for
This is a quick
closed session.
question, George. So when we come back, so that'll be, number 6 will be totally separate and it's discussed out here, not, okay.
Yep. Okay.
Clear.
I believe the real estate agent that's representing the client that's making the offer is present.
No, I don't think she's staying.
I think she's here.
Okay.
Any
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's take a 10-minute recess before we go in there. What, for the recess? We have to make a motion what?
Go into closed session.
That's what we just did.
Got a lot of stuff to talk about. You think you figured it out.
You can take it before you go in.
Okay. So who made the motion?
For what?
To go into closed session.
We did that.
You did. No, he just wants to know.
Oh, no,
who.
I'm sorry.
He needs to make notes on
No, we
this. He's
didn't.
got to follow these through.
It was, no, it was just to.
According to your recording secretary, you have not made a motion to go into
No, we
Oh
haven't.
my gosh, it was to add the real estate.
Can I,
Made
all
a
right.
motion to include Tony.
Yeah, that,
So we
okay.
can have a recess.
I thought we made the
and then
motion
come
for the
back.
Let's just go through it right now. I make the motion that
No,
we're.
hang on, let's just take our recess, come back and go into closed session.
Okay, yeah, we can do that, yeah.
We're in recess.
And that's our problem. Because George has forwarded that to you and I.
Yep, anytime office hours. Yeah.
Do you know who this Tom Welty?
Somebody's always there.
Name? Is what kind of just letting everybody know we can't, because of consent agenda, we can't do anything. I'd never didn't know him.